are the documents at issue the Michael Cohen bills that I just read, right? That read, Dear Alan, and this happened every month, pursuant to the retainer agreement, which Bragg says was a lie, there wasn't one, kindly remit payment for services rendered for the months of January and February 2017, saying there were no services rendered. He was no longer acting as a lawyer, and there were no services rendered in January, February 2017. So that's a lie, Michael Cohen's bill. It's also a lie that in the Trump bookkeeping department, the drop-down menu checked legal expenses. Should have been reimbursement. And I guess the only other thing would be the checks, which have nothing on them other than $35,000 and a Trump signature.
Actually, Megyn, I believe the checks do have the word retainer on them. And I look closely at the check, and I think that is where it's deceitful, because there was no retainer agreement between Trump and Michael Cohen. And so I think that's where they get him on the checks. But as far as the other stuff, this is where Andy and I would agree, is that I don't understand why Todd Blanche decided to make it so radioactive to say that there was a reimbursement here. Todd Blanche has laid down the line and said these are legal fees, legal services. I agree with you, by the way. Calling them legal expenses is a broader term that helps Trump. But it hurts Trump to say that these were not reimbursements. So now if the state can show the lawyer to be a liar that they were reimbursements, then I don't think it's a big logical step to then say that the way you treated it as legal services is intentionally deceptive. And although I don't see much direct evidence that Trump was involved in it, there's enough circumstantial evidence that I think gets the prosecution there. One last thing, Andy brought up a good point. I actually had missed that Cohen did apparently testify that there is direct evidence where Trump assented to the repayment scheme with Alan Weisselberg, although that's trusting Michael Cohen's word because Alan Weisselberg is not going to be brought in as a witness. But they do have Alan Weisselberg's handwritten notes, which explain how the $130,000 became $420,000. And I think that's important evidence as well.
Can I just make clear, do you know the answer, Dave? Because, the defense hasn't started its case yet. We just know what they're going to argue based on the cross-examinations that we've seen. Is Trump denying that there is a $130,000 reimbursement to Cohen for the payment to Stormy Daniels in that money, in that 420? Is Trump denying that he ever repaid Michael Cohen anything with respect to Stormy?
Yes, as far as the 420, Todd Blanche has denied that any of that is reimbursement. I think that's what's going to get him in trouble, especially when you see documentary evidence, when Trump's own words, where the 2018 lawsuit, where he said he did reimburse Michael Cohen $130,000 to pay off Stormy Daniels, where you see a tweet from around that time where Trump said that Cohen was reimbursed for the NDA. And then there's this financial disclosure form that Trump put out when he got to the White House, where he said under oath with his signature that, yes, he did reimburse Michael Cohen for an amount between $100,000 and $250,000. So that's what's going to get him in trouble. I think Trump's own words.
Why would Trump dispute that? Why? We all agree that hush money payments are not illegal. So why would he dispute? Why isn't the defense very clearly, yes, he paid her off. I reimbursed him. She was annoying. It never happened. I got rid of her. That's it. I don't know how they booked it. Why is he getting into, I never slept with her and I didn't actually reimburse Michael Cohen?
I wonder if it was because Trump is ordering his lawyers to deny that we ever slept together. And then perhaps he wants them to deny there was a reimbursement. But that doesn't make sense, because I think that, Megyn, is Trump's best defense, to say legal services encompasses a reimbursement. That was part of Cohen's job as lawyer/fixer. But when Todd Blanche says no reimbursement within the 420, that poses real problems for the defense.
Yeah, can I just add to that?
If my lawyer pays off a debt for me, Andy, if my lawyer pays off a debt for me that I owe personally, and I pay him back, I'm going to say legal services, legal expenses. I'm not going to get into the underlying, this seems par for the course, but go ahead and make your point.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with that. I think legal expenses is fine. Certainly not fraud beyond a reasonable doubt. But to Dave's point, if that is I hadn't understood that Blanche had planted his feet that way. If he has, that's like the most moronic thing I've ever heard, because not only is Trump on record a number of places indicating that he paid that back, but a statement by the party that's against the party's interest in a trial is an admissible statement. So they wouldn't even have to put a witness on for this. Basically, they could just put in all the places where Trump has acknowledged that the payment was made. So if Blanche did that, that's like a dunderbrain move, which
has that been admitted into evidence, Dave? Has the prosecution moved any of those Trump statements you just mentioned into evidence?
All three. The 2018 legal document that Trump filed as part of his California civil lawsuit against Stormy Daniels, where he admits that he paid Michael Cohen the $130,000 to go to Stormy Daniels. The tweet has been admitted into evidence as well, and the financial disclosure form, where Jeff McCarthy acknowledged that was Trump's signature on the form under oath. And as far as what Todd Blanche said, that's his lawyer saying it. Trump didn't say that there was no reimbursement, but Blanche said that and laid down that gauntlet in the opening statement, which to me, I still don't understand why he did it, why he stuck by that, which eliminates really Trump's best defense.
Yeah, I have to say, I come at this with prosecutor's bias, so take that for what it's worth. I always think that the case has to hang together logically, because if you're a prosecutor and the case doesn't hang together logically, then that's doubt and you're sunk. So that's the way we have to think about it. Defense lawyers sometimes look at the case a different way. They look at it as, I don't need to get 12, I only need to get 1. So sometimes the defense sort of collides into itself in a way that a prosecutor can't afford for the government's case to go, because you're trying to pick off a juror. And maybe you can get the jury to agree that the NDAs are legal, or maybe you get a couple of jurors to say that Cohen is just a terrible person and you can't convict on the basis of his testimony. They don't have the same obligation to be consistent as the prosecutor does. I stipulate that that's true. However, I've really been puzzled throughout the case, and I continue to be, that if your defense, as I think it should be, is that this stuff is legal, that these agreements are legal, then the last thing I'm doing is either denying that they happened when there's 2 tons of evidence that they happened. And I don't want to treat them like, if Trump is near them or touches them, it's incriminating. I want to I would have been tempted during Pecker's testimony. I would have been tempted to be sitting at the defense table in front of the jury doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. Like I wasn't getting hurt a touch by this. And yet the Trump defense throughout has really made an effort to try to put big distance between Trump and these transactions. And while I understand why they want to be able to argue to the jury that Trump was not involved in the granular detail of how things got booked, I just think treating this stuff like it's illegal and radioactive and something he needs to be a million miles away from is a big mistake. Well,
we had Arthur Aidala on Monday, who pointed out to us, he's a New York trial attorney, pointed out to us that he's very, very good friends with Joe Tacopina. And Joe Tacopina used to represent Trump. I think in this case, certainly in the criminal matters that he's been dealing with. And Arthur was intimating, though didn't say explicitly, that Tacopina is, like Arthur, a Brooklyn kid and wasn't going to be told by anybody how to try the case because he had strong feelings on his own, what should be argued and what shouldn't. And he's no longer representing Donald Trump. So I do think he was suggesting, Trump is strong-arming his lawyer into making the arguments Trump wants to hear himself in court, and that may be to his detriment. That would not be the first time that's happened. I do want to pull up, my team just sent me the Trump tweets that you were referencing, Dave, because we did at some point go back and look at that Stormy Daniels case, the civil case between Trump and Stormy out in California. And I know that you and others have argued that he explicitly admitted it was a reimbursement in pleadings in that case. When I read it, I have to admit, it seemed confusing to me. I didn't read the paragraph where he allegedly made this admission and say, yep, there it is. I was like, this is it? Okay. I mean, maybe not was my takeaway on it. I don't deny it. It wasn't clear. Here's the tweet. He writes, this is on Twitter. Hold on, I'll click on it so we can see the date. 5/3/18. Mr. Cohen, an attorney, received a monthly retainer, not from the campaign. So here he's using retainer, as like fee, interchangeable with a fee. Received a monthly retainer, not from the campaign and having nothing to do with the campaign, from which he entered into, through reimbursement, a private contract between two parties known as a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA. And then he goes on to admit this is in connection with the Stormy case. So here he uses the word, he says through reimbursement. That's how Michael Cohen entered into it. I mean, that's probably good enough. But again, I'm a little unsatisfied, Dave. Is there smoking gun language where he's like, I reimbursed him?
Well, do you see the conflict of interest form also that he signed around the same time he submitted to the government, where they added that there was a reimbursement of Michael Cohen for a fee, an expenditure between $100,000 and $250,000. So that those three things. And also, as far as the first thing you mentioned, the trial court in California, they subsequently came out with a ruling that says that this is an admission by Donald Trump, that this is an admission. So it was my understanding that it was clear that the admission was he did pay Michael Cohen to then pay Stormy Daniels, to reimburse him for the Stormy Daniels payment. But
and just to be clear, Dave, that was to Trump's advantage in the Stormy Daniels case, because he wanted to show we struck an agreement. I'm aggrieved and I want a remedy here. Like in that case, he wanted the court to know he had reimbursed her and wasn't embarrassed about it.
Correct. And as far as that tweet goes, Megyn, that tweet was a contentious tweet. The Todd Blanche and his team fought hard to keep that tweet out of the trial. There was a reason why they didn't want that in there, and they lost, and it was admitted because I think they understood how damaging it was.
Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and then they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay or if you're on a fixed income, they can help finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000 for a private, free consultation or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.